The bruise wasn't the first thing I saw. It was Ivy's silence. She walked through the front door of our small Oregon townhouse late Sunday evening, backpack slung over one shoulder, stuffed cat dragging limply from her fingers. Her father had dropped her off 10 minutes early and didn't even come to the door. "Hi, baby," I said, kneeling to greet her. "Did you have fun at Grandma Judith's?" She nodded. Once. No smile. No rambling monologue about cousin weekend. Just a quiet, small nod. Then I saw it. As she reached up to hand me her jacket, the sleeve of her hoodie slid down. The deep red mark around her forearm stopped me cold. "Sweetheart," I whispered. "What happened to your arm?" Ivy stiffened. "It's nothing. Just a game. We were playing freeze tag." But that wasn't a game mark. That was a fingerprint, a grip, a warning. I stood slowly, heart pounding. "Did someone grab you?" She hesitated. I was being annoying. I took Cameron's controller." Cameron. Of course. Judith's golden grandchild, the boy who could do no wrong. I swallowed the bile in my throat. "Did he hurt you?" Her eyes dropped to the floor. Before I could say another word, my phone buzzed. An email notification. Subject: contract termination. Immediate. My stomach dropped. I opened it to find a 2-line message from the Holloway Family Branding Agency, the one I had co-founded with my ex-husband Ronan 10 years ago before the divorce, and the shareholder reshuffle pushed me out of every major decision. "Effective immediately, all remaining freelance agreements under your name are terminated. Thank you for your contributions to the Holloway legacy." No signature, no explanation, just a silent erasure. They hadn't just iced me out of the family. They'd officially buried my work, too. I closed the phone. Ivy was watching me now, eyes wide, afraid she'd done something wrong again. "It's okay," I said gently. "Let's get you cleaned up. Then you can tell me everything you're comfortable saying." Later that night, after she fell asleep clutching Mr. Whiskers, I sat at the kitchen table alone, staring at the bruise. The house was quiet, but my mind was a war drum. How many times had I ignored my gut in that family? The times Judith told me I was too emotional, the meetings where Ronan edited my campaign proposals without asking, the boardroom where I watched my own strategy deck presented by someone else, my ideas stripped of my name. But this was no longer about me. I met Ronan in the parking lot of Ivy's school the next morning. He was already annoyed. "What's so urgent?" "She has a bruise on her arm," I said, holding up a photo I'd taken. "And she's scared to talk about it." He barely looked at the image. "Delilah, kid's roughhouse. You were always too sensitive." She said Cameron grabbed her. And she probably provoked him. Ivy knows how to push buttons. My fingers tightened around the phone. "She's 8, Ronan. And Cameron's 10. They're kids. Stop trying to make this into a federal case." "I'm not trying to make it anything," I said, voice shaking. "I'm protecting our daughter." He sighed. "Look, you've always had a thing about my family. This is just another—" She cried when I asked if she wanted to go back. That silenced him, for a second. "I'll talk to Mother," he said finally, tone clipped. "But don't turn this into another courtroom battle, Delilah. You won't win." I watched him get into his car and drive off, jaw tight, eyes avoiding mine. He didn't ask once if Ivy was okay. That night, Ivy sat beside me, coloring quietly. I gently broached the topic again. "Did Cameron hurt you before this weekend, too?" Her hands stilled. "He locked me in the coat closet once," she whispered, "at Grandma's house." My heart cracked open. "How long?" "A while." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Grandma Judith said if I tattled, no one would want me around, that I was already too much trouble." I closed my eyes. I had spent years trying to co-parent peacefully, trying to remain civil for Ivy's sake. But peace without protection is just silence. And silence was killing us. The next day, I made 2 calls. One to Maya Carlton, a fearless family law attorney I had met at a local design expo years ago, someone who had gone head-to-head with the Holloway legal team and lived to talk about it. The second, to Mrs. Bennet, Ivy's teacher. "She's been quiet lately," Mrs. Bennet said, voice low. "Withdrawn, and her last art project. It was a girl hiding in a box." "She drew something similar for me, too," I said. "Do you keep records of those?" "I do," she replied. "And if needed, I can testify." I thanked her, barely able to speak. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel crazy. I felt angry, and anger is the first sign you're finally waking up. That weekend, Ivy and I baked brownies. I let her lick the spoon. She laughed, genuinely, for the first time in days. Later that night, while she slept, I began organizing everything: photos, quotes, behavior patterns, email timestamps. I didn't know yet if it would be for a courtroom or a confrontation, but I knew one thing: they weren't going to bury me this time. I'd already clawed my way back from the grave once, and this time, I wasn't digging alone. They thought cutting me out of their family ended the story. They didn't realize I'd just started writing the truth. If you've ever been overlooked after giving your all, type 1 in the comments. Let's make space for voices that refuse to stay quiet. I was sipping lukewarm coffee at my desk when the ping came in. Subject line: Final notice, NDA breach investigation. I clicked. The email was from Holloway Legal Affairs, addressed to me by name. "We've received notice of defamatory remarks attributed to you, potentially violating the terms of your exit agreement with Holloway Family Branding. If confirmed, legal recourse may follow. Consider this a courtesy warning." I stared at the screen. No signature, no specifics, just a threat, a shot across the bow, the blog post. 2 days earlier, I'd anonymously published a short post in a parenting forum titled, "When They Tell You to Say Sorry for Being Hurt." I didn't name names. I didn't even mention Ivy. But I described a pattern: the child who becomes quiet after visits, the bruises dismissed as play, the family who calls emotional responses manipulation. And now, somehow, the Holloways knew. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept going over every visit, every hesitation Ivy had shown before staying with Judith. All the little signs I'd brushed off as normal childhood reluctance. So I started digging. I pulled up my iCloud and searched through 3 years of photos. Ivy, at Halloween, dressed as a tiny astronaut, smiling wide. The next weekend, after a visit to the Holloways, a photo at the park, her posture hunched, lips pressed in a thin line, eyes not quite meeting the camera. I created a folder, before and after, Holloway visits. By the next morning, I had 16 examples. I sent a text to Maya. "Delilah, need to talk. It's bigger than I thought." Maya, "Meet at my office, noon." Maya's office smelled like almond oil and high-stakes decisions. She greeted me with a tight hug, then locked the door. "Show me," she said. I opened my laptop, scrolled through the pictures. Her expression hardened as she took it in: the photos, the teacher's note, Ivy's drawing of the girl in the box. "We're not in hearsay territory anymore," she said quietly. "We're in behavioral pattern territory. Document everything, and I mean everything. Date, time, tone of voice." "I've started," I replied. "There's more." I showed her the email. Maya leaned forward. "They're trying to shut you up, which means they know you're close to something." Later that week, Ivy's teacher, Mrs. Bennet, pulled me aside after school. "There's something I've kept since November," she said, lowering her voice. "I wasn't sure what to do with it at the time." She handed me a folded sheet of construction paper. Ivy's handwriting on the top, the bad place. Inside, a drawing. A small girl, locked in a dark room. Outside the door, a boy stood grinning. Farther away, a tall woman in a red necklace watched, but did nothing. "That's Cameron," I whispered, "and that's Judith." "I thought so," Mrs. Bennet said. "We can submit this if needed. It's time." Back home, I added the drawing to the file. I was compiling it like a case because that's what it was now. Ivy peeked into the kitchen. "Are we having pancakes tonight?" "We are," I said, smiling. "And strawberries, too." She leaned against me. "Are you mad at Grandma?" "I'm not mad," I replied. "I'm just making sure everything's safe." There was a pause, Then, Mrs. Bennet says when you feel scared, you should tell someone. I didn't know if I was allowed. My throat tightened. You are always allowed, Ivy. Always. 3 nights later, I got the video. An anonymous email, no subject line, just an attached file titled 2024-10-15 XT Cam. I clicked play. It was security footage, wide angle. The backyard of the Holloway estate. Cameron and Ivy were off to the side, away from the other kids. Judith stood on the patio, talking to someone inside. Then it happened. Cameron shoved Ivy hard. She stumbled, tried to get up. He grabbed her arm, twisted it. She cried out. Judith looked straight at them and didn't move. I paused the footage, heart hammering. The timestamp matched the Sunday of her last visit. I hit forward. Delilah, Maya, check your email, now. Her reply came 5 minutes later. Maya, that changes everything. The next morning I got a call from Ronan. You're circulating footage from my mother's home? His voice was low and icy. I didn't circulate anything. Someone else did. This is your vendetta, Delilah. Admit it. No, my daughter was assaulted, and your mother stood by and watched. She's 8. Cameron is a rough player. You know how kids are. Don't you dare, I snapped. Don't you dare say she asked for it. You weren't there. You're never there. Silence. Then, if this ends up in court, Delilah, I'll drag you through it. Don't think I won't. My voice was quiet, steady. You should be more worried about the footage than about me. That night, after Ivy fell asleep, I uploaded the video to a private drive, created encrypted backups, and filed a formal CPS report through Maya. We met again the following morning. This is no longer just a family issue, she said. This is an ongoing pattern. The school report, the drawings, the video, they're going to come after you. I know, I said, but they won't win. Not this time. Judith once told me that real women know when to stay quiet. I hope she remembers saying that when the footage plays in court. If someone ever dismissed your truth because it didn't fit their story, type 2 in the comments. Your silence was never consent. The subpoena arrived with my morning coffee. It wasn't unexpected. What was unexpected was the envelope that arrived with it. Thick, hand-delivered, cream-colored stock, with the Holloway family crest pressed into the seal. Inside, a personal letter from Judith, written in her signature lavender ink. Delilah, this has gone far enough. You're tearing apart a family. Reconsider your position before this becomes irrevocable. Remember, courts don't take kindly to emotional instability disguised as concern. We both know how this ends. The audacity made my hands shake. Judith wasn't worried about Ivy. She was worried about optics. And this time, I had the camera on my side. Maya and I entered the county courthouse early. The courtroom was sterile, too cold, too bright, like a hospital for moral injuries. Judith arrived next, flanked by her lawyer Harrison Wells, wearing a blood-red coat and a practiced smile. Ronan followed, jaw tight, not meeting my eyes. And Cameron, dressed in a little navy blazer like a boy version of a CEO, sat beside Judith, swinging his feet and grinning like none of this meant anything. It didn't take long for the tension to cut the air into glass. Wells stood first. Your Honor, we object to the introduction of the footage as evidence. It was obtained without consent, likely through illegal access to the Holloway estate's private security system. Additionally, the footage is selectively edited and lacks context. Judge Elaine Harlow raised an eyebrow. Are you suggesting the footage has been doctored? Not doctored, Your Honor, he backtracked smoothly, but carefully trimmed. The minutes before and after are missing, valuable context to what appears at first glance to be aggression. Maya rose without missing a beat. What context justifies an adult watching a child being physically assaulted and doing nothing? Murmurs spread through the room like a ripple through still water. Then the video played. Every eye turned to the screen as the grainy footage filled the monitors. Cameron shoving Ivy, twisting her arm, the tears on her face, the way Judith turned her head, then calmly sipped her tea. Silence followed the final frame. Judge Harlow leaned forward. I'll hear from Mrs. Holloway directly. Judith stood, serene and poised as ever. I love both of my grandchildren deeply. What you saw was unfortunate but not malicious. Ivy had taken Cameron's property and was antagonizing him. She needed to learn the consequences of such behavior. And those consequences include physical injury? Judge Harlow asked sharply. Judith tilted her head. Children must be prepared for the real world. Ivy is delicate, emotional, overly sensitive. My fists clenched. Maya placed a hand over mine under the table. Judith wasn't just gaslighting the court. She was laying the foundation for their real strategy: paint Ivy as unstable, emotional, unreliable, which meant they were coming for me next. The judge called a recess. I stepped into the hallway for air. Ivy was waiting with her court-appointed therapist, Dr. Emily Morgan. She gave me a thumbs up and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She's holding up, Dr. Morgan said quietly. But this isn't easy for her. I nodded. It shouldn't have to be this hard to be believed. Back inside, we returned to testimony. Mrs. Bennett took the stand. She spoke of Ivy's drawings, the behavioral changes, and the way she would physically shrink any time Judith or Cameron were mentioned. She was afraid, the teacher said simply, and she didn't know if it was okay to be. Then Dr. Morgan testified. She showed Ivy's sand tray therapy results, a tiny rabbit surrounded by wolves, cornered in a fake garden that looked eerily similar to the Holloway estate. She didn't tell a story, Morgan said. She showed it, over and over. Wells tried to object. Speculative psychology. But the judge overruled it. Then came Emma Pearson, the former nanny. She admitted to signing an NDA. She admitted she had broken it. But she also admitted she had seen Cameron lock another child in the basement at a birthday party. She had text messages, saved files, and a trail of ignored warnings. And then, the shock came. Mrs. Watson entered the room, mother of the little girl from that party. "We were paid off," she said flatly. "My daughter had nightmares for a year. We signed to keep quiet. But when I saw Ivy's story, I couldn't anymore." She held up a copy of Ivy's blog post, printed from a parenting forum. This was the mirror. I recognized it immediately. The defense crumbled. The guardian ad litem delivered her recommendation. No unsupervised visits. Period. And then the final nail, Patricia Dunning. Judith's former assistant, now testifying voluntarily, handed over emails. Internal discussions about Cameron's behavior, strategic donations to cover up past complaints, and most damning, an email from Judith to the headmaster of Cameron's school calling Ivy a risk to family optics if she speaks out. You could hear a pin drop. Wells didn't even cross-examine. He just sat down, pale and defeated. The judge stood. This court sees a pattern, a disturbing one, a child abused, a mother dismissed, a family more concerned with its image than its responsibility. Full legal and physical custody is awarded to Ms. Quinn. Mr. Holloway is granted supervised visitation after completing parenting classes. Judith and Cameron Holloway are to have no contact with Ivy Quinn. My knees nearly gave out. But I stood tall. For her. Later that night, I sat on Ivy's bed, watching her brush her doll's hair. "Will I have to go back there?" she asked softly. I shook my head. "Not unless you want to, and I don't think you will." She smiled. "Okay, I like it better here. We have pancakes. And safety," I wanted to say. And truth. Judith said this would tear the family apart. She was right. I just didn't realize how many people were ready to watch it fall. If you've ever had to fight twice as hard just to be believed once, type 3 in the comments. You are not alone. The award email hit my inbox just as I was opening a court notice. The subject line of the email: "Congratulations. Ivy Quinn wins first place, statewide youth poetry contest." The subject line of the court notice: "Notice of appeal, Holloway versus Quinn." Two completely opposite messages. Same morning. I clicked Ivy's first. Her poem, "I'm Not Sorry," had been selected for publication in Young Voices of Oregon, a collection distributed to public libraries across the state. The judges cited it as a work of quiet defiance and emotional clarity beyond her years. I clicked the court notice next. Ronan was appealing the custody ruling, claiming the footage was manipulated, claiming I'd orchestrated a smear campaign. I almost laughed. He was still trying to win by rewriting the truth. That evening, Ivy sat across from me at the kitchen table, knees tucked under her, chewing on the end of a red pen as we drafted her author's statement together. "What do you want people to know about your poem?" I asked. She tilted her head. "I want them to know that being hurt doesn't mean you did something wrong, that you're still allowed to talk." I nodded. "You said that perfectly. And I don't need an apology from him anymore," she added softly. "I'm not sorry that I said something. I'm not sorry that I got help." I felt tears sting behind my eyes. She had transformed. Not just survived, but evolved. Meanwhile, the Holloways were unraveling. Judith stepped down from 2 nonprofit boards. Cameron was transferred to a therapeutic boarding school out of state after a second family came forward, with eerily similar complaints. Ronan's law firm began distancing itself from his case. Patricia Dunning, Judith's former assistant, joined a nonprofit focused on family abuse and became one of the lead advisors on parental coercion and psychological manipulation. The damage to their reputation was irreversible, but I felt no satisfaction, only relief, and maybe a sliver of closure. The day of Ivy's poetry ceremony at the Capitol building, she wore a sunflower yellow dress. Her hair was pulled back with tiny glitter clips. I couldn't stop looking at her, confident, whole. At the podium, she read her poem aloud, voice clear and certain. "I'm not sorry for crying or for saying stop. I'm not sorry for being scared or for not loving the hurt. I'm not sorry I told. I'm not sorry I didn't lie. I'm not sorry I needed help. I'm not sorry. I'm alive." The crowd erupted in applause. I stood in the back, hand on my chest, as proud as I'd ever been in my life. Not because she won, but because she owned her voice. That night, as we celebrated with pizza and cake, I got another email from Ronan. "Delilah, I'm withdrawing the appeal. I've started intensive therapy. I understand now how much damage I enabled by staying silent, by letting my mother speak for me. I don't expect forgiveness, but I do want to be accountable. Ivy deserves that much. Congratulations to her on the poem. She earned it." I stared at it for a long time, then closed my laptop. Some apologies aren't words, they're absence, and maybe that's what Ivy needed most. Weeks later, the Oregon Family Advocacy Conference sent a keynote invitation. They had read my blog. They wanted me to speak. Maya grinned when I called her. "Told you, your voice is making waves." "What do I even say?" I asked. "I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a psychologist." "No," she said. "You're a mother who walked through fire and brought her daughter out the other side." I accepted. At the conference, I stood before a room of professionals, lawyers, therapists, educators, and told them our story, not as a victim, but as a witness, to what happens when power protects silence, to what courage looks like in a child who refuses to shrink, to what recovery can be when the truth finally wins. "She was told to apologize for being hurt," I said, voice steady. "Instead, she wrote a poem that made the whole world listen." The standing ovation was humbling, but what happened afterward mattered more. People came up, whispering their own stories, about gaslighting exes, about schools that dismissed bruises, about family courts that favored money over merit. I realized we were never alone. We were just the first ones to go loud. Back home, Ivy started teaching a free weekend poetry class at the community center. Her first assignment to the other kids? Write about something someone told you to hide. Her work was being laminated on hospital walls. My illustrations now filled a children's trauma wing. Maya's firm launched a regional task force to investigate donor-funded NDA abuse. I could see the ripple effect. From one voice, one bruise, one choice to say, enough. One evening, Ivy asked if we could go stargazing. We drove just outside of town, lay under a stretch of black sky sprinkled with stars. "Do you ever think Cameron will say sorry?" she asked. I exhaled. "Maybe, maybe not." "I don't think I need him to," she said. "I used to. But I don't anymore. I turned toward her. Why? She smiled. Because I already said the most important thing. I said the truth. They taught her to say sorry for being hurt. She taught the world to stop apologizing for speaking up. If you've ever been told your voice was too much when it was just the truth, type 4 in the comments. This space is for you.